many solutions to Israel's problems, solutions being offered, many solutions being offered to Israel's biggest problems. It's security issues, the fact that it is surrounded by savages that want to kill every last Israeli, and uh, those different plans that different politicians in Israel have are all pretty bad. I think my guest today, Moshe Feiglin, is one of the exceptions in that sense. His plan is one that I very much agree with, and we spoke a few weeks ago. We spoke about that. We spoke about some of the things we disagreed on, and we decided it would be much more interesting if we skip the things we agree on and go right into the things where we disagree. So, Moshe Feiglin, welcome back to the Daily Objective.
Hello, Razi. Nice to see you again.
You too. And let me ask the day after. So, Moshe Feiglin is prime minister. Israel has won its various wars or various fronts on the same war, and is now living in peace and security. What does life look like for somebody, let's say somebody like me, you know, Israeli citizen who has no interest in religion and in practicing any aspect of it?
I don't think it's my business to tell you what your life look like. It's your business to decide what your life will look like. Uh, you'll have much more freedom than the average Israeli has today, because there'll be a much smaller government, much less involvement of the government in day-to-day life of the individual. Instead of have almost 40 ministries in the government, we'll have not more than 11, hopefully even less. There'll be a real free market. The land will be held by the people, not by the state. So there'll be free market at that particular area too. It's hard for people to believe, but more than 90% of the land for building in Israel is held by the government, and that's the reason why the prices of housing in Israel is so crazy. More Tel Aviv is much more expensive than Manhattan, for example, or London. Uh, uh, the good news, of course, is the fact that Israel is the only country in the world, almost, definitely in the Western world, but basically in the whole world, that has more than 2 children per family. So we have a population that increase dramatically and fast. And young couple wants to get married, want to have families, and cannot afford to have their own housing. And that create a circle that in many aspects takes the freedom from the average Israeli. Because when you cannot live in your own house, you cannot, more than 50% of the Israeli income goes to housing, to be able to go to sleep with a roof above your head. That's of course crazy. So that's the country we are talking about. We're talking about having the whole land, the entire land of Israel being held by the state of Israel, a prosperity made by free market, leaving the individual and less individual, less involvement in the individual life. Uh, uh,
So
the
let
whole
me
land, the whole land, but very small government.
so let me be more specific. I mean, I love bacon, for example. In Judaism, you're not supposed to eat pork, in Islam as well. Right now, there are all sorts of restrictions. I'm not an expert on what exactly they are, but restrictions on growing pigs in Israel. So you would do away with all that. I mean, I could go to a restaurant. I can open a restaurant across the street from a synagogue that sells bacon.
You can do that today as well, unfortunately. Uh, and you'll be able to do it under my government as well, of course. But you'll feel much less, but I hope that you'll feel less comfortable with that. What do I mean by that? I don't believe in laws, but I do believe in culture. And when there'll be no corrosion and the original Jewish culture will be developed by open discussion between all sides of society, I believe that that original culture will be a culture that you'll feel uncomfortable uh, uh, um, going against. Just as on Yom Kippur, you don't see uh, Israelis driving their cars in the middle of the cities, not because there's a law against it, but it's part of our culture. And just as 98 or 99% of the Israelis circumcise their children doing Brit Milah, even though there's no law that's forcing you to do that, but it's not because of a religious reason, it's part of your culture, of national culture. Uh, I hope that the freedom I'm talking about and the fact that uh, um, that you'll be in charge of the national ethos that you're developing here, the national ethos that you're developing here. It won't be the Knesset, it won't be the laws. It will be by the people themselves. I hope we'll slowly but surely develop a culture where to open such a restaurant will be something that you don't feel comfortable doing. There will be no policeman that will tell you no, yes or no. But you yourself will eat pork if that's what feel that you have to do at home and not out in the street.
Okay, I mean, you kind of lost me, and I think you know you lost me when you said unfortunately you'd be allowed to do that. But I'm wondering because okay, that's a difference in
Why do
our
you want me to force
value.
it on you?
What?
Why did they lost you?
Well, I mean, in the sense that I see that we have different values. I mean, for me, the unfortunate thing is there's a synagogue where people go to be irrational as opposed to come to the restaurant and have some good food. But my fear when you say about there would be a culture
I'm
that
sorry,
would
I didn't
discourage.
understand you. Please explain to me what you just said.
For you, the unfortunate thing is a restaurant that sells pork across the street from a synagogue. For me, the
No,
unfortunate thing
no,
is,
no, no, no. It's not what I said. It's not what I said. I
or
don't
unfortunate that it would be allowed.
personally, I don't want to see it. I do not want to see a restaurant selling pork in front of a synagogue. But I I believe in a total separation between the state and the individual. The state, let's say the food that is being served in the government offices or in the army has to be kosher. The international airport, as long as it belongs to the state, has to be closed on Shabbat. Private airport can be open on Shabbat. If there's a radio station that belongs to the state, which I believe that we should not have, like they have like BBC or something like that. We do have it in Israel. However, as long as we have it, it should be closed on Shabbat. It should not broadcast on Shabbat. Private radio and TV should be allowed to do whatever they want. So it's the government obligation to keep the Torah and the mitzvot of the Torah and the order, the Jewish law, not the individual. The individual should be free to do as his wish in his private, place, and as long as the community, and that's something that I did not explain, as long as the community you live in, okay, accepting selling porks on the streets, so the state cannot stop it. I believe that uh, um, when there'll be no coercion and the responsibility for the Jewish identity will go directly back to the people of Israel, they will care about their identity and about their honor, national honor, not because of religious idea or if you because you believe in God or not believe in God, because it's part of your national culture, and we'll see less and less of that happening. That is the system that I want to see that is being built in the Israeli society. That let us connect back to our roots, to our culture, to our identity, not because we are forced by laws, but we are simply connecting back to our national identity.
Right. So we're not forced by laws. I'm not entirely sure how a community would decide. So, for example, if 10% of the community I live in likes pork, they might shop at my or eat at my restaurant, and the other 90% can go across the street to the synagogue. Would they be able to vote my restaurant out of
Okay.
existence?
Okay. So that's a very good example. So what will happen, obviously, is that I don't know in Dizengoff in Tel Aviv. Obviously, there'll be restaurants, pork restaurants, and in the middle of Jerusalem, there'll be much less places like that you can find. Okay, those 10% will have to cross the street in order to go eat pork and not in a place that 90% do not want to have it. And they will have the authority to vote about those things. It won't be from the government, it will be the community that will decide. The community will decide if there'll be a gay parade on the street or not. It would not be able to be forced on by the Supreme Court as it is today, for example. Okay? It's the communities that will decide if there'll be a gay parade, and the way the streets looks like on Shabbat and Yom Kippur and so on.
So another aspect of this that I'm wondering about, and I just as a side point, you said something about if the airport is owned by the government. I don't know why anything should be owned by the government
I
except,
agree. I
the
agree.
police, the military, and the
I
courts.
agree. True.
But I would not want to ban in those places pork if somebody wants to eat. But that's a very side issue, I think. What about, Jews who marry non-Jews? What would their status be? Can they get married in Israel, or will under your leadership?
I don't think it's the state that should marry people or not. My grandparents got married before the creation of the Israeli state, the state of Israel, and they lived very happy for many years. Uh, you'll be surprised, but I believe that the whole concept that people are getting married through states, you need the state approval for marriage, comes from it comes from a very, very bad place in humankind history. There used to be this idea of the first night, the king get the first night with a new when couple gets married, the king gets the first night. We see here that which and the concept was, and went through many generations. The concept was that the loyalty between the couple is for the king before it's for the family between themselves. And here comes late on, of course, late in history, some very, very a shadow of that concept that you cannot marry unless you go through the kingdom. You see what I mean? I think there's something not normal and not good about the whole concept that marriage should go through the state to begin with. So if you want to live with a non-Jew, um, privately, I'm very sorry about it, of course. But go ahead and do whatever you want. It's your business. What can I tell
Okay,
you?
so in terms of the same community that would, frown upon the restaurant that sells pork, but allow it in some circumstances or not in others, what would the community treat an Israeli Jew who married a non-Israeli non-Jew? How would they
I
approach
know
that?
many Israelis who living with non-Jews or got married with non-Jews in certain ways. S- Some of them are good friends of mine. So I don't understand the question. I think it's a mistake. I think it's wrong, but it's their life. What's I don't see any difference between what will be and what the situation now.
Well, I months ago I interviewed on a Hebrew podcast that I have. I interviewed Chaim Ben Pesach, and he said that it's treason for a Jew to marry a non-Jew. He used the word treason.
You definitely cutting the chain of Jewish generations. In that aspect, he's right. By marrying a non-Jew, your kids will not be Jewish anymore, and you did not pass the Jewish identity from one generation to another. So on that aspect, it's simple. Call it a treason, call it a different word, but that's the result of it. So basically, you say you don't care about the Jewish nation, you only care about the individual, and you can call whichever name you want. I,
Okay, I mean, what?
I think by cutting yourself and your obviously your kids from the special nation that you were born into, you losing a lot by yourself. But that's again, that's your individual issue. It's not to me to decide for you.
Yeah, so this is again where I think we agree on politics, but I'm not 100% sure. I also, think it's a waste of a person's time to, study the Torah, to go to synagogue and so on. But I absolutely 100% never want the government to tell anybody not to do that and would be against any government that tries to stop people from doing that. But
How can you
I'm
say
wondering
how
what,
can you say it's a waste of time? Every knowledge that you learn is not a waste of time. Definitely knowledge that's supposed to be your basic identity. So I definitely don't understand what the sentence is.
well, we disagree on that being the basic identity, and I think it's,
Okay.
repeatedly studying a work of fiction is as if it has some saying
Okay.
in your life. But my concern, and we'll get to religion maybe after this, but my
Did you learn
concern,
how much did you learn Torah in order to be able to say that?
more than
So
I
how
wanted
good
to.
do you know?
What? Sorry, what was the last question?
How many years did you invest in learning Jewish philosophy and the Torah in order to come to that conclusion, may I ask?
The number of years that they force you to do it in Israeli schools, I don't remember the exact year, but that is the extent, and that was way too much for me.
So basically, what you said, what you just said is that you know nothing about the Torah, because
I'm saying I know more
because
than I want to know,
because
but
the Jewish education and the Ministry of Education, which I believe should be closed, okay, not only that teaches you nothing, teaches you the opposite of Judaism, okay. So you basically know nothing. So there's no meaning to what you just said.
okay, but I fully support the right of anybody who can
Yeah.
do so, not on my dime, to study the Torah from dusk till dawn every day of their life if they want to do so. But I want to know in terms of ultimately. the state of Israel. You say certain things would be legal, but would be frowned upon. Where's the, am I living in some sort of early stage US or in the Ayatollah's Iran, but a Jewish version, or like somewhere on that continuum, is what I'm trying to realize. What is the difference between in terms of internal politics between voting for you and voting for, say, Rabbi Kahana?
Well, I'm not representing Rabbi Kahana here. I can tell you that my party has the most informed platform. No party in Israel. It's actually a book. It came out. I'll show it to you. My platform came out as a book in 2019. It became immediately a bestseller in Israeli bookstores, and it deals and deals with every aspect of Israeli life. So we're hiding nothing, and no party gives you everything about everything like that. So everything is open, everything is on the table. We're not hiding anything, and just the fact that you mentioning the Ayatollahs in your question shows that you really don't understand nothing of Judaism. The difference between Judaism and Islam is like the difference between democracy and Nazism, even more. Okay, so your question is coming from a total zero understanding in Judaism. Zero. I don't know how much you understand in Islam, but in Judaism you understand nothing. And what I'm talking about is, you see what it says over there behind me? No, you can't. It says Yahadut Shaveh Cherut. Judaism means freedom. I'm talking about freedom, real freedom. And there's no freedom without identity. You believe there is, Razi. You believe that you can reach your freedom by erase your identity or invent identity as much as you like, the way you like. Well, this way, your way, leads immediately to tyranny and to death. We go back to our discussion last time, okay? The state of Israel will be a light of freedom and identity under the wings of one God to the entire universe. That's the state that I'm talking about. Okay, the freedom of the people of Israel from Egypt was a light, was showed the way to free the entire universe from tyranny and from slavery. And when there's one God, not two, just one, not zero, which means you are God, okay? And when there's no God, which means the human being, you replace him, it means that you decide what the law is. And when the Ten Commandments become Ten Commandments that created by people, it's the Ten Commandments that being forced by the strong on the weak. And the first commandment that is always taking out from that kind of Ten Commandments is do not kill, lo tirtzach, okay? And we see that those ideologies that erased God, and I'm talking about definitely about communism, first of all, that always comes with atheism, always ends up with hundreds of millions of dead people. Okay? When there's no God, there's death. So we are talking about going back to our identity in Israel and being a light of life and justice and freedom to the entire universe by develop a society that live according to these principles, a society that developed this old a culture that the prophets of Israel talked about in the Bible, and which you have no idea what they said because you never really learned it, okay? And I really suggest to you, as a Jew, okay, to learn your heritage. You're missing so much by simply turning your back to your rich culture, a culture that the whole civilization, the whole Western civilization, the whole monotheistic civilization is based on. You see, Razi, you are sitting on the shoulder of a giant, and you think that you are the giant, but you're very, very small and short. The reason why you can sit right now in England, okay, and and enjoy whatever is left from that Western civilization, which is crumbling down very fast, by the way, because of Islam, okay? The reason why there is a Western civilization to begin with is because of that Torah and this Bible and these 10 commandments and this belief in God. The whole British culture is based on that. Okay, I'm not going to get into the whole history of the British kingdom and so on. But the whole reason why the state of Israel was created to begin with was the Balfour Declaration. And the Balfour Declaration came, and there's a famous writer named Barbara Tuchman. I think she was British. No, she was American. Famous historian Barbara Tuchman, who wrote this book, the Bible and the Sword, and she described why Balfour and his friends, the mayor of London, for example, decided to give the Jews the permission and to encourage the Jews, actually, 120 years ago, encourage the Jews to go back to the promised land after 2,000 years of exile and create their own state. And what they're saying, according to Tuchman, okay, is that after the tremendous despair of the Enlightenment time, which end up with World War I and tens of millions of dead bodies at the trenches of the Somme and Verdun in Europe, and the invention of that killing machine, the technology, airplanes, trains that bring more and more soldiers to the battlefields, gas warfare, machine guns. So after that horrors, Balfour and his friends said, maybe when the people of the book will go back to their promised land, and the sons of the prophets will build their nation again at the hills of Judea, a new message of freedom and justice will be radiate to the entire universe. So there's an expectation in England, where you're sitting right now, from Israel, from us, from the Jews. Unfortunately, we in Israel did not want to carry that message on our back. We decided that we're going to create just another, I don't know, civilian country, normal, a nation like all the nation, country like all the countries. There's no need for us this way, and that's why we have those wars all the time. So we have a responsibility to connect ourselves back to our heritage, because the entire universe is expecting something from us. But to think, so I cannot blame you that you grew up in that kind of Israel that's running away from its identity, and poor Razi as a student in a regular Israeli school learns nothing. This is for us to blame ourselves, for sure. But you have to understand that to throw the whole Jewish legend in the same pit where you throw these Islamo-Nazis is the biggest disgusting idea that I can think of.
Well, it was a question, and I will actually get back to that. But I'm a big football fan, and one of the things that really annoy me in football is when a player scores an amazing goal, really showing his skills, and then does this, and thanks God. And when they miss an easy goal, they never
Yeah.
angrily respond to God. And this is kind of what you're doing. I'm definitely standing on the shoulders of giants here in London, the giants of the Industrial Revolution, the technological revolution, who built these buildings, who built the technology who built the planes that enabled me to come here, the technology that enable us to talk from thousands of miles apart to the rest of the world. Those are the giants. I don't really see how any of this is traceable back to any type of religious.
Why do you think I'm talking about tracing anything back? I'm
Well,
talking
you're
about,
connecting this to Judaism somehow. Like I'm supposed to thank the religion for the fact that I live the life that I do in London.
yes, I do. So please let me explain to you how. First of all, m- technology is very good, but the same technology, as I explained before, create the atomic bomb, the chemical warfare, the biological warfare, the ability to destroy the entire humanity. The same great phone, same great cell phone or internet that we're talking to enable people that we don't know at least, not know at all, listen to us and control our life 24 hours a day. So what gives you the freedom, same thing, gives you a new kind of slavery. You cannot run away from it. Technology is just a tool. And I'm in favor of that tool. I don't want to go back to horses like the Hamish in America. No, I want to have electric cars. I want to have the good life. I want to have all. But the question, what does it serve? All this technology, good things or bad things? And if you erase God, it will serve very bad things. Let me tell you. Now, that's one thing that you should understand. In your mind, Jewish state, a real Jewish state, is going back to the 1,000 years backwards. It's ridiculous. It's not what I'm talking about. Of course not. Okay. And I want to tell you one more thing. Yes, the reason why this technology was developed to begin with is is because of the same culture. Why societies, pagan societies, did not develop what those societies that took upon themselves the concept of one God did. Societies that have families, identity, not just tribes, for example. Okay, free mind. You, I believe that besides morality, also the ability to develop civilization and technology came from freedom. When you have free society, and that I believe you can agree on, you will agree with, when you have free society, you have free market, you don't have just free trade and prosperity, you have free thinking that leads to all these new developments. That's why you have much more new developments in the free world than in the communist world, for example, where they only develop weapons. Okay, for example, okay, or much more. And that free society comes with the Ten Commandments. When everybody obey the same law that was given by God and not by the strong. So you see that there is a connection between the faith in one God in the Ten Commandments that leads directly to freedom. That's the only way to freedom. And freedom is the way for that development that you enjoy so much.
I have to say about the Ten Commandments, although this is very much a side point. I mean, you mentioned one of them earlier, "Lo tirtzach," thou shalt not kill. That's not the same thing. You know, the English translation is not correct. In Hebrew, it's "Lo tirtzach," which is "thou shalt not murder," and it's a very
Yeah,
different thing.
I thank you. I agree. Sure.
But it goes back to show, you know, this was written or at least translated by men and not by a higher power. But I want to get to
No,
um,
Hebrew. No, you
yeah.
translated it right. I agree. It's do not murder. Yeah, right.
Um, our audience is I would assume the vast majority are not Jewish. The vast majority are supporters of Israel. Most of our audience we has found us after October 7th. And so I'm wondering about our existing audience or elsewhere, people around the world. Do you think having some type of support from around the world is important for Israel? Of course, maybe not in the dependence way that Israel is dependent on the US. But do you think it's important to get the support of people, let's say, before governments or alongside governments from around the world?
I think Israel should develop a good relation based on common interests and common values with many countries as can be. Uh, uh, Trade and projects that you do together, yes, as much as can be. Uh, we're not talking about support. We have a lot to give, both physically and spiritually to the entire world. I guess more spiritually, but definitely physically as well. Uh, I don't need to tell you that the amount of Nobel prizes that the Jewish nation is 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 holding is exponentially higher than any other nation. Uh, so yes, the Jewish nation and the state of Israel is supporting the entire universe, and the entire universe should have the right kind of relationship. I don't like the word support, and I'm not looking for support. I'm looking for common interest, relationship with nations that we are having that we're not in a state of war with, and not looking to kill us. Those that are looking to harm us are our enemies, and we should defeat them. And that's the kind of relationship that we're looking for. Israel should be a country that respects itself and can support itself. There's no reason to get any kind of aid from no one. We are not a third world country. We already today one of the richest country in the world per capita. Uh, the average Israeli is making more money a year than the average English British citizen today, which is amazing. More than England, more than Germany. Unbelievable to think of 30 years or 30 years at all ago you could not think of something like that. And Israel is, even though with all the mistakes Israel is doing, and there's a lot to be fixed and correct, Israel, I believe, is on the direction to be the richest country in the world.
So I like the Nobel Prize example. I use that as well. I use the patents, the fact that Israel is the highest per capita and the second highest not per capita. I mean, it's a nation of innovation like none other, and that's the argument I use when I encourage people to support, and I mean morally support Israel. But yours is different, and I want to go back to the issue of, Judaism as the basis of all this, because you are asking those of us who, like you mentioned, I'm not an expert on the Torah, I'm not an expert on any religion. I do observe reality and see how certain things work and certain things don't. You're asking a worldwide audience to basically look look at what we see now in the world and say, okay, Judaism is the right philosophy, not Islam, not Christianity. I don't really know what the different, not, uh, Xenu, the intergalactic warrior in Scientology who came to this planet millions of years ago, according to them, and killed a bunch of aliens or something. Any Scientologist in the chat, I know I might be getting the facts wrong, uh, but I don't care. Like I don't care the distance that Xenu traveled to the earth. I care the distance of Scientology and Judaism and other religious ideas from reality. And why should a random person around the world looking at the Middle East, being interested in what's happening there, why should they support Israel from your perspective? And again, you can use a different word than support. Cheer for Israel.
Because most of humanity believes in God and believes in the Bible. You'll be surprised, but you're representing a minority. Most of humanity, definitely in the Western world, believes in God, believe in the Bible, and the fact that your people, the Jewish nation, exists through thousands of years. I mean, you belong to a nation that met the Babylons, the Pharaonites, the Greeks, the Romans, all history, and survived, and was exiled and coming back and came back after 70 years, and then were exiled again through almost 2,000 years. And just as promised in the Bible that most of humanity believes in, the miracle happened, and not only that you did not disappear, you came back from all corners of the world with the same Torah that you kept back to your promised land, just as promised in this Bible. So you, Razi, as long as you remain Jewish, okay, you can say, I don't believe in God, but on your forehead, there's a sign says God exists. Okay? You, a living proof for the existence of God. And the state of Israel is a living state that, even though it's trying to be secular, proves the fact that God exists. And all the believers in the world sees that. And the good side of humanity that believes in God and want to see humanity walking step by step towards its redemption, towards the good relationship with God. God lives with us in history, in reality, show us the good way to be good to each other, live with in peace between each other, between the nation, and according to the way the Bible shows us. Okay, those part of humanity naturally in favor of the Jewish nation and the whole process of the Jewish redemption. And those who wants to get rid of God want to get rid of the Jewish nation. For example, why Greta Thunberg, this girl who deals with the environment, yes, the global warming, immediately after the 7th of October came in favor of Hamas. Why the feministic movements all around the world did not condemn the terrible rape of the 7th in the 7th of October? Why? And the same thing with the gay organizations. The same thing with all corners of the uh, um, uh, how do you call it? All corners of
The political spectrum, or
no. I'm 1 second.
right.
Uh, this new concept that replaced modernity. I'm talking about, I don't know what I have a blackout suddenly. 1 second. I'm talking about the progressivism, okay? All corners of the progress concept, progress ideology, the all appearance of the progress ideology are in favor of Hamas. I mean, these movements of the UN, of the UN organizations, all aspects of progressive movement of the progressive movement. And it doesn't mean if it doesn't mean it. There's no difference between the gay movements, the environment movements, the feminist movements, and so on. All arms of that same octopus standing on line in favor of Hamas. Why? Because the progressive movement do not believe in any identity. They're looking to erase all identities because the structure of identities is like the Eiffel Tower. When you see the Eiffel Tower in Paris, you know that there's a guy named Eiffel that built it. And the different identities in the world shows you that there is God that created the world. So this progressive ideas wants to chase God out of our life, and therefore will always be in favor of any ideology like the Islamo-Nazism, who wished to destroy the Jewish nation and the state of Israel. It proves that God exists by its existence. You, Razi, prove that God exists by your very existence.
All right. There's a lot in there.
As a Jew.
I hope that the sign on my forehead that says that God exists is metaphorical and not one I will actually have to wear. But I do want to say the progressive
You
movement.
can actually read it. I know. I can see it on your forehead. You try to erase it. Maybe it'll come off. I don't know.
Well, we'll edit it out in post. But the progressive movement is anti-reason, and it is absolutely pro-identity in all the wrong ways, as in the aspects of a person's identity that are immutable characteristics, and it goes so far as to invent them. I mean, they're all about race and gender to the point that they make up genders. So I wouldn't use them as an example of the alternative to religion because I think they're another side of the same coin. But you also talk about the history of the Jews and the fact that we survived all those horrible things throughout history. And I look at that and Jewish history does not paint a picture of a benevolent God. And generally speaking, wherever religion is taken more seriously, humans live not as well as if it's not taken seriously, as you can see in the world today. Um, but yeah, specifically with Jewish history, isn't that a case against the idea of a God existing, first of all, and certainly the idea of a benevolent God. I mean, the fact that some of us survived when 6 million were slaughtered less than 100 years ago, I don't see that as okay. Let's take that and see it as a victory. Take the win, as Biden would say.
But let me, you definitely have a point. I mean, there's a question. How can God let something like this happen to his chosen people? And to tell you that I have an answer, a good answer for that, I don't. Uh, definitely not on the individual level. Historically, maybe I can understand it, but to explain why something like that happens to a little baby, I cannot explain. I'm not going to even try to. It'll be stupid of me to try to answer the question like that. But I'll throw to you back to you a challenge. Okay, I think we all agree the biggest appearance of evil in history was Nazi Germany, right? At least until the Hamas Nukhba came at the 7th of October. Maybe they were worse. But when we're talking about a regime, a whole nation that scientifically behaves logically, using science, like using technology, using all their culture, developed culture to do such an evil that you just mentioned, represent the deepest evil that humanity ever got to. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I disagree with where you're going, but I'll let you go there and then
No, you don't know yet where I'm going. I'll surprise you. I believe I'll surprise you. Uh, and they saw, I mean, the Nazis, Hitler יימח שמו, okay, saw you, Razi, as their biggest enemy. Hitler went to war against the Jews. The reason for the war was to kill you. On the way, he had to capture the entire world, but the reason was you, and he said it many times. You cannot run away from it. That his ultimate enemy was not the Russians, was not the Polacks, it was the Jews. Okay? So if he represents, I mean, it was so crazy that trains that was supposed to take German soldiers to the Eastern Front to save Berlin held days until the last train of Jewish babies will be taken to Auschwitz. It was more important to kill you than to save Germany. So if they are the definition of evil and they see you as their worst of enemy, what does it say about you? What does it mean? What does it say about you? It means that you, on the other side of the scale, if they represent the ultimate evil, you represent something very, very good. There's something very, very good and unique about you as a Jew. They didn't care if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, if you're religious, non-religious, leftist, rightist. You, as a Jew, was the ultimate enemy of that evil. It means that you're carrying something inside you that Hitler was very afraid of.
okay, I'm not sure where you're going with that. I mean, the fact that the Nazis saw the Jews as the main problem is the reason why I should think of myself as special.
I'm saying that the question that you asked me before is a good question, and I don't understand everything that God. I have questions, and I will always have questions. Okay, I have my faith, which is one thing, and I have my questions, and not every question that I have has an answer. Okay, I am not God. I will never know everything. If I knew everything, I was God. I don't know everything. I'll never know everything. Okay, that's a difference maybe between you and I. I don't believe that I am God. Okay, however, uh, the same Holocaust that you see as a question shows more things than just this question. It shows you that you are the enemy of the evil. By the way, Stalin in 1956 was ready to do the same to the Jewish nation. Not many people learn about it, but in 1956, on Purim, by the way, which is going to be this week, all the preparation were done after the famous doctor trial to kill another 5 million Jews in the Soviet Union, not in gas chambers, but simply strip them from their clothes and throw them in Siberia without clothes from the train. Let them die and froze to death. 5 million more Jews. And there was a miracle that Stalin died on Purim 1956, and it did not happen. So you see that evil tyrannies, Hitler and also Stalin, saw the Jews as their biggest enemy. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're looking to take over the entire world, and make the whole world your slaves, the Jews become your enemy. Because you can never enslave the Jew, because the Jew already has a king, the king of the Almighty, the king of all kings. Your Judaism represent freedom, liberty. So these dictators, absolute dictators, and it doesn't matter if it's Achashverosh of Paro or Achashverosh of Purim, or Hitler or Stalin, cannot live in the world where the Jewish nation exists.
Right. I mean, so Stalin wanted to exterminate the Jews, but 15 years earlier, he was at war with Hitler. So if the enemy is evil is the good, then there's a bit of a contradiction there, and that's the problem. That's why I think we should look not to the most evil people in the world to determine who we are, but we should look to reality and live within that. And that's why you said, I don't believe in God. I think I am God. No, that's what not believing in God is. It's believing in existence, in reality, in humans being what they are and working with that as we do. I mean, as you do in your day-to-day life, you don't rely on prayer to survive. You rely on reason, to whatever extent.
Well, I do survive because of prayers. What do you think? What do you think saved Israel at the 7th of October? The Israeli army?
Again, saved Israel. I mean, October 7th, over
Well,
a
October
thousand
7th
people
was a
were
miracle.
slaughtered. I don't
But
see that as a
the fact that the Hamas, okay, were too busy raping and slaughter babies near the border of Gaza, and not, because of that, they did not continue and took over the Israeli Air Force bases in the south. That was a miracle, very hard miracle, but a miracle. Okay, God works in mysterious ways, but works. On the other hand, the Hezbollah, if they would have done the same at the same day, no one would have stopped them, and they could easily meet each other and shake hands in Tel Aviv. So yes, God saved us. And look, if you want to close your eyes force your for not see the miracle that happened to the Jewish nation through all the years until the recreation of the Jewish state, and what happened in 1948 against 5 Arab countries, and since then, and what happened now, you could keep on think that everything is, depend of our actions, but and I'm not against it. I mean, you should act and do whatever whichever responsibility that we have, but not to see God's hand in history, and definitely in Jewish history and Israel history, means to close your eyes with all your strength instead of looking at reality.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I struggle with this part because I look at October 7th and I see a bunch of terrorists who could have been defeated 20 years earlier, could have been defeated 10 years earlier, should have been defeated at so many steps in time. And we agree on that and on how they should have been defeated. I mean, we both want to see nothing left of the culture that made October 7th happen
Def-
in
Definitely.
Gaza. But you still see that day as a miracle rather than as a as a horror and a result of the failed policies of humans who could have done otherwise, who could have done what you've been advocating
Uh,
for, and then there would not have been an October 7th.
Razi, let me just make sure that you understand me 100%. I don't mind if we don't agree, of course. And most of the thing, I mean, what makes the discussion between us interesting is that we're talking about the points that we disagree, but at least we should understand what we disagree about. Well, I had the honor, the privilege to lead the struggle against the Oslo agreements in Israel 30 years ago. I knew exactly where it's going to end, how it's going to end. Okay, against the Oslo process 30 years ago, against the disengagement plan 20 years ago. I led the fight against all that because I saw reality. And the reason why I saw reality is because I'm looking at history in a faithful eyes. And when you do, you have a good understanding of reality. Definitely in the Middle East, definitely in Israel, definitely with the Jewish nation. You cannot understand the history and what's going here without that. Think for a second, what was the Oslo process all about? How come the Israeli leaders, the leftists, okay, came with this crazy, stupid, idiotic idea of bringing the PLO, the terrorist organization, from Tunisia, give them part of our land, which is the Gaza Strip, which is part of Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, the biblical land of Israel. Gaza is a biblical Jewish city, okay, in the promised land. Given that and expecting that that will lead to peace. You don't have any example in history where a normal nation does something like that. Okay, they were defeated, out of here, live in North Africa. Okay, why did we do that? Well, the intellectual that was behind it, his name was Dr. Ron Pundak, from I think the Tel Aviv University, said openly it was about Israelism of the Jewish state instead of Judaism of the Jewish state. It was it was in order to create a state with no Jewish identity. Okay, we need to somehow solve the conflict here. So we need to bring them here in order to make a peace with them, in order to show that we can split the land and be recognized as a normal nation. So that whole craziness that we both agree on came because group of people were trying to create a normal nation, a normal civilian nation out of the Jewish nation. It came because of running away from identity and from believing in God. So it's exactly the opposite of what you think. When you're running away from your Jewish identity and your Jewish faith, you're running away from reality and observe some crazy ideas, sacrifice your security, and end up with the 7th of October.
So I remember your fight against Oslo. I was a kid. I was a leftist kid. By the time of the disengagement, I remember going as a Likud party member to the poll in the referendum that Sharon declared would be binding. Of course, it didn't go his way, so it wasn't binding. But I remember going to vote, being offered some cherry tomatoes from somebody from Gush Katif, declining, thinking to myself, you're not going to buy my vote with cherry tomatoes. I'm going to vote anyway with you. And yeah, I remember that. I very much appreciate your fight against all that. When you start talking about religion and identity, I become fearful. I think there are many issues where we disagree. You know, speaking of conflict, I would very likely vote for you, but I would do that with some fear about internal policies. But I'm sure we can talk about this again. There's plenty of time between now and the election. Hopefully, you will come back to the Daily Objective. Any parting thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
The bottom line is, I do want your votes, but much more than that, I want yourself to come back to Israel. This is your land. This is where you belong.
Well, thanks. I'm not going to do that. I will come back to visit and maybe to
Okay.
vote. But yeah, if and when I do visit Israel, maybe we can do this in person. And again, hopefully,
I'll be happy. I'll be happy to continue. Yes.
great. Well, Moshe Feiglin, thank you very much for joining me today. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you, Bonnie and Alexis, for the super chats. We'll be back tomorrow with a daily objective and the reality show. We'll see you then.
Thank you.